and welcome to another episode of Design Divas. I'm Pavitra and Sheila from Shilpa Architects, and here to talk to you today about all things architecture and just interesting things that are going on in our lives. So, today, ma'am, we wanted to talk about one of our ongoing projects, which is for the Tamil Nadu climate change program, which is
Yeah.
looking at the green monuments in the state and what we are doing to try and make all our monuments and temples and other religious structures a lot more climate resilient. So, and today we're going to talk about the particular project that we're working on for the Madurai Meenakshi Amman Temple.
That's really lovely as an initiative because of climate resilience and the focus on doing projects for this. We're doing things for the people, for the community,
Right.
and the people will be able to enjoy it at all seasons even better.
Right. I think it also comes down to the experience of being at
Absolutely.
these monuments.
Being comfortable.
Yeah, I think there's a lot that's been done, especially in the context of Madurai, because it has been a smart city.
Right.
And there are smart city initiatives that have helped with things like, the waste management and movement of people. But there's always that little extra mile that you can go to try and make it more comfortable for the religious pilgrims. So, as part of this project, we were basically looking at, other plans that have been put in place. I already mentioned the smart city plan, but also other various implementation measures that are in place. And then, of course, we undertook a very intensive on ground sort of survey and understanding
For
of what is
feedback,
going
yeah.
on. And then, of course, took it into what the various design proposals for helping address the actual aspect of environment and climate in this particular monument was going to be. It was a daunting kind of exercise also because we didn't quite know where to start. The Madurai Meenakshi Amman Temple is something that we all as architects sort of revere. I mean, so many of us in our early years of architectural sketching have all sketched these gopurams.
The curved gopura.
Correct, and looked at the angles and the perspective for form and beauty. But now to come in and do this, it was really quite a task because we didn't really know where to start. And the obvious start was to sort of go on the ground and just figure out what was really going on. And for this, we heavily relied on technology. I mean, thank God for technology. And undertook a series of drone surveys, which helped us with heat mapping information, which then helps us with directly understanding what climate impacts are currently, ongoing there, as well as information for 3D elevations, GIS mapping, on-ground surveys, audits, energy, the whole gamut. So that I think all of that kind of, came together in a beautiful way in which we had like a bouquet of digital stuff that we could then, pick apart and then start working on the rest of the analysis and the interventions with.
Yeah, only when you get this kind of information, which is the ground reality, then we are able to analyze and decide what the design interventions have to be.
Right.
So I think it is very important. And as you said, technology is playing a very important role, and we are able to get all this mapping, etc., instantaneously. Otherwise, it would have been so difficult to get the heat maps.
Impossible.
Yeah,
I mean,
so-
to be able to get those radiation heat maps the way we
and
got them.
identify exactly where the problems are and where exactly it's not required, intervention is not required, where it is required,
Right.
what kind of intervention is required. So I think analysis is the starting point of any design intervention. So after doing this heat analysis, we noted that we were able to identify the areas which were hot areas, which were kind of radiating heat.
Right.
And where the prakaram is, it was about 40 degrees. So the
Right.
people were walking on granite and they were walking around the temple. So how do you make this? Because granite is such an intrinsic part of all our prakarams.
Correct. I mean, the
And-
feel of granite, you kind of you recognize that feeling of the granite, the tactility of it on walking on it.
barefoot.
Yes, exactly.
All this is so important, and therefore, how do you make it a beautiful experience and not an experience where people have to, scamper and run and hide between little shades and
Correct.
do a little dance there to get into the pressing.
Right, right. And the other challenge I think over here was just to be able to work with an older monument. You didn't want to like come in and say, put cooler paving because you
Absolutely.
want that granite there.
Absolutely.
There are no ways in which we could have added a lot of shading because this would mean digging up the foundation and doing all of those things, which is too invasive. So it had to be done in a fairly
very sensitive way,
in a subtle way.
And you have to strike that right balance.
Right.
So I think planting, as you said, was on this prakaram was out of question.
Right.
So how do you bring in shade? And we all know that trees are the best shade givers.
Right.
And they don't reflect the heat back into the ambience, they absorb the heat. So this is what we needed those sponges to absorb the heat and the glare. So how do you do this? So I think we had to go with the next best option instead of planting, which was the shade, shade sails.
Right. And I think what that does is, being a lightweight kind of a material, we were able to shade the area and also provide the sails at a higher height.
plane.
So then it starts feeling like the space still maintains its openness. There is still a connectivity to the sky that people
Correct.
kind of want, and we're able to still provide the heat.
Yeah.
I think a lot of temples and monuments, if you've noticed, ma'am, have started doing this thing where they have cooler bits on the floor that have been painted with whiter paint so that it's comfortable for the foot. This is also an intervention that we could look at, but we just felt that as a team,
the granite would be
think
better.
That it would have been nicer.
Yeah.
So it's a combination.
And as Pavitra said, the scale of the prakaram is so important because as one walks through the prakaram, you should also, your eyes should
go upwards.
Yes.
Yeah.
So if you put a stunted sail, then you're ruining the scale of the.
Correct. So the Madurai Meenakshi Amman Temple complex itself is fairly dense and it's fairly occupied, and there is not a lot of like empty pockets of land or anything around this that we can use to ask for planting or adding other layers of biodiversity or locations for people to rest in a natural environment. It's fairly built, and when people do come in, one area that they sort of seek respite and maybe spend a little bit of time is around the temple tank.
Absolutely.
Because it serves as that open space. It serves as that lung space. And what we found while looking at the heat mapping and the data around the tank is that the tank is also giving off quite a bit of heat, right? Where the water is, the colors are cooler, but where the seating is, it's still really hot. So it becomes more of an evening usage than a daytime usage. So to try and mitigate that, and like we kind of lost that opportunity to do any sort of planting along the prakaram, we thought this was a nice area for us to bring it in. So the intervention through landscape of bringing in small areas with shading and seating around it was something that was easily implementable here. So that was another idea that we decided to pick on.
By this, as one walks around the prakaram and suddenly sees the column, then you're able to go there, sit around for some time if it is shady, and the evaporative cooling of the water kind of
it also helps, yes,
helps
because there is like a lot of dry heat in Madurai. Yes.
And so what happens is you're able to sit down there and the person can meditate, can look around, so we had to use this as a space for creating that very major experience for the pilgrim.
A lot of the study actually even looked at existing plans and things that have been written out for the city. And the smart city plan is something that has really helped in the pedestrianization of the streets around and working on a parking strategy and restricting vehicular movement and things like that. But in spite of all of that, there is an MLCP, there is a 400-meter radius into which, the cars can't drive inside the Chitrai streets and the Moolam streets. But at the same time, there was a little bit something lacking. And this again came out very, very,
Very,
very
very blatantly.
blatantly in our surveying that, the streets were still hot.
The streets are
So,
still-
you still had like these, these spines of like dark yellow, orange, and red showing up on the survey along the streets. And therefore, the idea of, additional streetscape, added trees, which then bring down the temperature and also help that feeling when you're walking towards the monument was something that we had to look at.
Yeah. See, all the Mada Tiruvils, as we call it, they are all commercial,
Establishment,
buzzing
yeah.
with commercial
Yeah.
activity, with small shops, which give that intrinsic character to the temple.
Right.
So I think people love, window shopping or
No, they also hold a
stopping
lot
at
of sentiment to that.
Sentiment
Through
to
shopping,
pick
I bought this at the temple
Yes,
for you. Kind of,
yes,
that,
yes,
that, yeah.
yes. Souvenirs and takeaways.
Right.
So this is a very, very important part, and therefore people have to meander, have to spend time. So how do you make them spend time when it is uncomfortable and hot?
Right.
So that was a major.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's good that you brought the vendors up, because even though this was not really an urban design proposal, I think one of our sort of recommendations at the end of the study was to at least formalize all the vendors in one of the mandapams that are available, where they're already existing, but just, just give them a system of being a little bit more formal, some form of licensing and things like that, so that it kind of helps with the whole heritage
So
walk.
it's not
and
just
feeling.
squatter-driven walk,
Exactly,
yeah.
exactly. And it sort of opens up some spaces for people to gather. So this has been a great initiative that we worked on as part of the Tamil Nadu government's climate change mission, and to be a part of like the Madurai Meenakshi Temple's
Absolutely.
history and legacy, and have a little smidge of some input in there itself is an amazing feeling for an architect.
Absolutely.
And for someone who values heritage and culture so much. Like for Sheila ma'am, I'm sure ma'am, this was like a lovely experience for you.
Yeah, walking around temple streets, walking around the Prakaram has always been very special.
Yeah.
And I'm sure it is special for every individual. So I think this, for the pilgrims of who go to the Madurai Meenakshi Temple, who are either residents of Madurai or, tourists, visitors who come there to, seek a certain, inspiration, seek a certain solace from the deity. I think this would really help in, making the experience very special.
So it's a wrap for this edition of Design Divas, where we talked about our experience on a recent project for the Madurai Meenakshi Amman Temple. Our next episodes are going to be coming up with other interesting topics on architecture. So be sure to like, share, and subscribe to Design Divas for more such content going forward. Thank you.